It's Tuesday, July 6th, and this is now on HNN.
Developing at noon, state lawmakers have convened to discuss overrides of the governor's vetoes.
I think the state got caught with our pants down around our ankles, not quite ready for this rebounding and robust tourism industry.
Diamond Head, like many other sites, is slammed with tourists. So what can the state do?
You will see flash flooding conditions in many parts of Florida as this thing moves through.
Parts of Florida are under a state of emergency as Tropical Storm Elsa moves closer to making landfall. I'm Bo Zimmer near Sarasota with the latest on conditions here.
Plus, the latest on the cargo plane crash investigation. These stories and more coming up on This Is Now.
Good afternoon. We want to get you started with some developing news. Here's a live picture of the state capitol downtown. State lawmakers return today to see if they have enough votes to override any governor vetoes. So to get more expertise on this, we're joined here live in the HNN Digital Center by Daryl Huff, HNN's managing editor. Right?
That's right. Yep. So, Daryl, the veto override session started about half an hour ago, but lawmakers still don't know what's on the governor's final list, right?
Yeah, and it's very frustrating for them because they really would like to know, but this governor has a tendency to do everything at the last possible moment, and this is another example. He had 27 bills on his veto list that he had to tell them in advance, and they have no idea which ones he's going to veto up until even this minute. So the Senate convened about half an hour ago, said, let's reconvene at 2:30. Mm-hmm. The governor is promising a press conference at 1 o'clock where he's going to list his vetoes. The number one thing that we're all interested in is what happens with this tourism reform bill that changed the way the Hawaii Tourism Authority was financed. It gave the counties taxing power to raise the hotel tax on the hotels in their county. Mm-hmm. So that's the real focus of what's going on right now.
Right, and you've been in discussions with House and Senate leaders. What are they saying they're going to do if the governor does veto the HTA bill?
Okay, so there's a couple of choices. I can't say for sure what they're going to do. I don't think for sure they know whether they have the votes to override. They need 2/3. There was a lot of different pieces to this bill. The state house really liked the idea of letting the counties have taxing power because it's always been frustrated to them that the counties didn't get in trouble for raising taxes. So now they could raise taxes if they want, and most of the counties want that. The state Senate, however, wanted a lot more control over what HTA does. So what they did was they took away their standard funding that actually automatically came out of hotel tax every year, and they said, no, you have to come to us and tell us what you're doing. So that's the big objection that the governor had, was to that part. Mm-hmm. So when legislators look at these things, they look for a way to cobble a deal together. So what they may have been doing is talking and saying, okay, we're going to give the House what they want, give the Senate what they want, give the governor what he wants, and we'll have a new bill. And in that case, they have to have it ready today, and they have to get it passed finally on Thursday. So, if he doesn't veto it, none of that has to happen.
Right. Say he does veto the HTA bill and the ledge doesn't have enough votes to override it. What are the implications that we could see from this bill?
Okay, let's start with if they do override it. If they do override it, you end up with all these gaps. The counties have lost money. It's not in the budget. They don't have the power to raise the hotel tax themselves. HTA doesn't have any money at all in the current budget. So this chaos is created if he vetoes it. So that's one of the incentives for overriding the veto. But there's a lot of question about whether there's enough votes. We don't often override Democratic governors. So from what I could tell, there's still conversations going on. I don't think they've got a deal ready because they don't know what the governor's going to do.
Right. And there are other major issues too, right? Teacher raises. What else could possibly be on his list?
Well, the reason that they're here in the first place is because there's flaws in the state budget. They used money from the federal government to pay for some bonds. After the session was over, they found out, you can't do that. So they've got this basic flaw. So they know the governor's going to veto something. He's already line item vetoed part of the budget. So they know they're here for a reason, right? So that is going to require fixes, again, that are going to be set up on the table today and approved on Thursday. So that's the budget. The other big thing you mentioned, the teacher bonuses. Since they passed these special bonuses for all teachers, there have been a huge uproar from the other public workers unions questions from the governor about whether this is even legal. So the chances that there's enough votes to override that are really slim.
All right, so we will see what happens at that 1 o'clock press conference with Governor Ige. Now let's get to the latest coronavirus numbers. The state health department is reporting 39 new cases today and no new fatalities. The breakdown by island shows 2 cases on the Big Island, 1 on Kauai, 3 on Maui, 28 on Oahu, and 5 people diagnosed out of state. Meanwhile, in an interview on Sunrise, Lieutenant Governor Josh Green says the state's vaccination rate should only include people who are eligible for the shot.
We're at like 58.6%, so I'm going to grab that extra 0.6%. Sorry for being so prickly. And we'll touch 60% pretty soon. A couple other numbers that are important. We're at 63+% of people who have started the vaccination. So in 2 to 3 weeks, we'll get to that 63%. But it is slowing down. And to get to 70% will be very difficult. To get to 70% of the entire population, that means we've got to get over 82% of all those who are eligible, because we're still counting the 216,000 young individuals under age 12 in our denominator. It's going to be super hard. I think more realistic will be 65% fully vaccinated, 5% individuals with immunity because they caught COVID, like myself, back in September. And that should be enough to give us herd immunity and be safe. They're discussing the targets right now. I'm going to jump into that meeting right after I talk to you. And these are critical questions, because in order to get all the way to 70%, we have to do 265,000 more shots. 265,000 more shots, doing about 3,000 shots a day, is about 3 months longer. And that's if it doesn't slow down. And I think people are going to freak out if we got to wait another 3 months before we get rid of some of the mask mandates and other rules. So these are just the reality moments that I'm trying to express to you. And I want people to just be totally aware of what we're up against. So encourage friends to get vaccinated if you want to get away from some of these restrictions sooner.
Yeah, and you just touched on this. I just want to clarify, maybe get a little bit more, flesh that out just a little bit. But you're proposing that people that have had COVID and have recovered be added to that list because of antibodies. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes. So once you've caught COVID, you get natural immunity, right? And so your body produces the antibodies just the same way as if you've been vaccinated, your body produces antibodies. And so from a scientific standpoint, this is me being more doctor than lieutenant governor, you ought to count those people because they're immune. The challenge, of course, is that take a look at my case. I caught COVID before there was a vaccine, which was a bummer, and was sick for a few days. So I got some immunity. And then 2 or 3 months later, when the vaccine was available, I went and got the shots when it was recommended. So you can't count me twice. That wouldn't be right. But we have had 38,043 people with confirmed COVID. I'm sure it's another 30,000 that have also had COVID and never got confirmed. So you can be sure that 5% of our population got natural immunity. We could tease those numbers out a little bit more scientifically, but about 5% is a fair estimate. So I'm just saying, what we're talking about is trying to stop COVID from spreading. It shouldn't be some kind of abstraction with numbers. We should actually talk about when we're safe. That's why I always look at who's in the hospital, how many people, whether they were vaccinated or not, and how many cases. Those are better indicators of policy drivers.
I don't want to get too into the weeds with these numbers, but what I do want to consider is, why don't we move the percentage rate just to the people who are eligible to get the vaccine? Because it would be much higher if we took out 12 and under. Or under 12, I should say.
Well, that is definitely true. So that number is 73%. Right now, 73.5%, if you want me to be more accurate. So just under 3 out of 4 individuals in our state who are eligible for the vaccine have gotten it. And that's like best in the country. I actually was very pleased to read the New York Times this morning, sometime 2 or 3 in the morning, and they talked about how Hawaii is in the top 3 on pretty much every indicator. And that's one of them specifically that you refer to. So that would be a probably better way to go about it. We're looking at September at the earliest, I think, when children between ages 5 and 11 will get vaccinated. And as a father, I think that there's going to be some reluctance to get younger kids vaccinated in large numbers. So I prefer what you just recommended or suggested, which is looking at just who are eligible.
New today, a woman in her 60s died in a house fire on Oahu's west side. We've got Billy V with the latest developments.
Thank you very much. We're down here in Waianae on Momona Place. This is where a fire happened overnight. Honolulu Fire Department responded here to this building on Momona Place. When the firefighters arrived, all four walls of the structure were engulfed in flames. The carport area also on fire. Bystanders told Honolulu Fire Department that there may be a female inside the occupant of the home. They got to a point where they could safely enter. They rushed in, found a 66-year-old woman, brought her out, and EMS transported her to Waianae Coast Comprehensive, where she died. There was also a 17-year-old neighbor that was treated on the scene, that refused treatment here on the scene. According to Honolulu Fire Department, the fire damages are estimated at $350,000 to the building, $15,000 to the contents. There was also a dog living at the residence, whereabouts currently unknown. There were no working smoke alarms in the home, and the cause and origin of the fire is still under investigation, although they have not ruled out arson. From Waianae, I'm Billy V for This Is Now.
Federal investigators have begun mapping the debris field from Friday's cargo plane crash off Kalaeloa.
Certainly a concern is stability. If it was in a place where it could easily slide off of this ledge, it could drop to a much deeper location and salvage could become very, very challenging.
NTSB officials say the Boeing 737 operated by Transair is between 150 and 350 feet deep, about 4 miles offshore. It's unclear if they'll be able to recover any wreckage, but their priority is finding the black box information recorder that might explain how both engines failed. They'll also interview the two pilots who have both been released from the hospital.
The next probably large piece of information that we'll be able to share would be the preliminary report or an investigative update for our investigation. I would expect one of those maybe within a few weeks.
Transair says it has grounded its other 737s for now and is using smaller prop planes to deliver cargo for its customers.
A busy holiday weekend, that's for sure. More than 130,000 people arrived in the state over the last 4 days alone. And we're seeing a lot of those visitor hotspots overwhelmed. Diamond Head being one of them. Mahealani Richardson just took the hike. Tell me what you saw and what those numbers look like.
Well, in May, the state saw 70,000 visitors, and that's way past pre-pandemic levels, which saw levels in the 50s. And you see from the video there, look at all the hikers. They look like ants. I kid you not. And so there are a lot of people there. There's a ticket system there to get in, but it is really crowded and really no social distancing as you go up that trail.
That's a good point there. So were people's attitudes still good, or was it compact and people getting grumpy and frustrated, or were people having fun still?
Well, these are tourists and they're on their Hawaiian vacation. This is paradise. So everyone that we talked to was having a great time. You know, it's a hot and dusty trail, but everyone didn't see anyone complaining. People were surprised by the volume of people. But, once you get up to the top and on the way, everyone's going for that picture-perfect Instagram shot. So no one seemed to be complaining about that.
And you and I did it way back in 2019, before the pandemic. It was crowded then. So these numbers are really, really, really peaking.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we visited back then in 2019 because they had just finished trail improvements.
Yeah.
And so the state says they're not concerned about any impact to the ecosystem because, as you see there, the visitors are staying on the trail. There's not much erosion. They are concerned about maybe potential impacts to the neighborhood and traffic. And so there's actually a system of lights there. They're thinking about opening the Kapahulu tunnel for traffic or for foot traffic only. So they're trying different things to try to move cars through one tunnel and people through another tunnel.
And that's not really the only thing the state's considering. One sort of controversial, a fee system and pricing system, right?
Right. So they raised fees 5 months ago, and already they've raised $500,000. So the fee went from $1 to $5 for hiking and $5 to $10 for non-commercial vehicles. And when you think about it, the visitors, they're not really blinking at that cost. And so the state is thinking, well, maybe we'll raise fees again. We'll make it possibly even more dynamic, meaning they'll raise the fees even higher during the busy season and lower it during the shoulder season. And they're also thinking about, they are going to implement a reservation system just like they have at Haena State Park and Wainapa Napa State Park.
Maybe a trend we'll see more and more. We'll have to wait and see. Mahealani Richardson, thanks so much, and thanks for taking the hike and showing us what it's like up there.
It was hot wet.
I'm sure it was. So let's see how many people are taking to the air when we're talking about travel. Here's Pete Montaigne.
These numbers are big for the pandemic. The TSA screened more than 10 million people at airports across the country between July 1st and July 5th. But what's so interesting is that some of those days actually saw numbers that were bigger than 2019 back before the pandemic. The TSA screened 2.1 million people on Thursday and Friday, and then again on Monday. Monday, the third busiest day of the pandemic. But Thursday and Friday saw numbers higher than 2019. It all speaks to pent-up air travel demand. People have been waiting on the sidelines to travel again, and the lines here at Reagan National Airport have actually been larger than we have seen in many months. In fact, some airports, according to the TSA, like Nashville and Myrtle Beach, have seen volume higher than 2019 before the pandemic. United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby said he anticipated that Monday would be the busiest day in 16 months, but airlines are not totally out of the woods yet. There are some complicating factors, like the fact that airlines just got smaller over the pandemic. Fewer people are now staffing fewer airplanes, and that's making it harder for airlines to bounce back from weather and maintenance delays. FlightAware says airlines in the United States canceled or delayed more than 4,000 flights on Monday. Pete Montaigne, CNN, Reagan National Airport.
And you heard us talking about with Mahea, over 130,000 visitors to the state in just 4 days. I saw it in Waikiki myself. The Shave Ice stand in front of the Royal Hawaiian Center stretched for at least a block and a half. No lie. That was on Friday, I believe. Well, let's see how the weather's treating all our visitors. Here's Guy Hoggy.
Whatever rain comes through will be brief in nature because of these brisk and breezy trade winds running from Maui all the way to Kauai. They're going to be running up to 15 to 20 miles an hour. Kona winds though over in Kona, so it's going to be hot and humid there. Otherwise, today is going to be much like yesterday. Large surf rolling into South Shores, lots of leeward sunshine, high temperatures approaching 90 degrees with those breezy winds, so that UV index is extreme. And so here are the wave numbers from the National Weather Service. They're saying the high surf advisory will continue through tomorrow. 8 to 12 on the South Shore. That's big, that's dangerous. So if you're unfamiliar with large surf, stay out of the ocean. Wrapping down to the west side and east shores are getting that trade wind swell at 3 to 5 feet. So we've got that big surf on the South Shore through tomorrow and breezy winds through tomorrow as well with lots of sunshine. And then we're going to see those trade winds back off a little bit Thursday and Friday. And then on Saturday into early next week, the winds pick up speed, and we'll also see a few more clouds, a few more showers when those winds ramp up. Keep it here at Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
All right, we got a live video feed coming into the H&N Digital Center. This is from Siesta Key Beach in Florida. You can see some pretty gray conditions out there. That's because everyone is watching Elsa right now. There's a hurricane watch in effect for parts of Florida's Gulf Coast as the tropical storm moves closer to landfall. There's a potential for isolated tornadoes here, flooding, and much more. I want to turn it over to Bo Zimmer, who is from our Tampa sister station. He's in Sarasota County, Florida, right now with the latest.
Intense rain and strong winds battered Key West Tuesday as tropical storm Elsa makes its way up the Gulf Coast. But the rough waters weren't enough to deter a few fishermen in the area. In addition to the wind and rain, there's concern about flooding and storm surge.
You will see flash flooding conditions in many parts of Florida as this thing moves through.
Governor Ron DeSantis told Floridians along the coast to get ready.
Be prepared to be without power for a few days and having enough food and water for each person and their family, including for your pets.
In Tampa, people filled sandbags ahead of the storm, while in Sarasota County, some couldn't resist the waves. What's the goal today?
Get some good surf.
Here in Sarasota County, people are closely watching the tide. When it comes in, it could bring with it a storm surge of up to 3 to 5 feet. The stormy conditions are also impacting the search and rescue efforts at the condo collapse in Surfside.
The wind is hampering the large cranes moving very heavy debris.
At one point, lightning temporarily forced the search to stop. Officials say they have personnel from the Weather Service embedded with the rescue teams to stay on top of any changes that could impact the work. Bo Zimmer, CBS News, Sarasota County, Florida.
And I want to pull up this hurricane track right now. You can see it right there. It does look like it's going to have some strength as this storm approaches Florida. You know, you can track this storm as well, even from this far away in Hawaii. Just go to our H&N digital platforms, click on your hurricane tracker on our weather app, or I believe it's on a regular app as well. So, Ashley, we got an update on Britney Spears, right?
Right. So her longtime manager is resigning. Media reports say Larry Rudolph sent a resignation letter to Spears' father, Jamie, and to the conservator of her person, Jody Montgomery. Now, he wrote that he hasn't spoken to Britney Spears in 2.5 years when she intended to take an indefinite work hiatus. He says she is now planning to officially retire and no longer needs his services. Rudolph has worked for the pop star since her breakout single Baby One More Time in 1995. This comes nearly 2 weeks after she testified during a court hearing, claiming that she was forced to perform and take medication against her will. Her next court hearing is scheduled for July 14th.
And we'll be following all the updates there. We got some more celebrity news, and this time it's some positive stuff. Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton had some fireworks this weekend, tying the knot on Saturday. Stefani posted a picture on her Instagram page to announce the news. The couple who met on the set of The Voice got engaged back in October of 2020. This is Shelton's third marriage and Stefani's second. And I'm a huge Gwen Stefani fan.
Oh, same. When they got together, I was like, that's an odd couple, but it seems to be working. Yeah.
To be honest, though, that Christmas album, it was okay.
Yeah.
It was good for the Target ad, but wasn't one of my Christmas favorites.
Yeah. It's hard to make good, catchy Christmas tunes. You guys, so they're small creatures, but sea urchins are apparently causing big problems in oceans around the world. They're destroying crucial marine habitats and stopping other species from thriving. But as Tina Kraus reports, environmentalists are turning the tables on their urchin enemies.
Get some nice young urchin.
These divers in Australia are more like fishermen with fins, looking for a good catch.
Sea urchins are moving through these reefs, sometimes in really dense fronts, almost like little armies moving along and clearing everything in their path.
They're collecting menacing sea urchins to stop the spiny creatures from devouring huge amounts of kelp that capture and store harmful carbon dioxide. Divers put the pests on a plate for a seaside snack.
We can eat it and help solve an environmental problem at the same time.
Well known as uni in Japan, some restaurants in Australia are also touting urchins as a delicacy, even to garnish cocktails. But not everyone is feasting on the little critters.
And when every time we tell them about sea urchin, they always say no.
In the U.S., Pacific purple sea urchins have destroyed more than 95% of kelp forests from San Francisco to Oregon. A company called Urchinomics is capturing the creatures and selling them to sushi and seafood restaurants looking for new recipes. A worldwide effort hoping to save the oceans one bite at a time. Tina Kraus, CBS News, London.
So I guess I'm playing a big role in protecting the oceans because I eat a lot of uni.
Yeah, and it's part of a huge trend about eating those invasive species, right? It's important. There's all sorts of invasive species you can actually snack on and actually help the environment as well.
Yeah, a lot of local chefs are having events called Eat the Invasives with like Samoan crabs and all kind of other invasive plants in the ocean. It's pretty cool.
What's your favorite way to prepare it?
Uni?
Yeah.
Raw.
Raw?
Yep, with rice.
All right. All right, you guys. Big announcement. This is huge. Scott Humber, our boss, just turned 50, and this is what he walked into today. I love this prank. I'm not sure who pulled this off this morning.
It's a secret.
But it was genius. And his reaction, I can't say it because of FCC censors, but it was amazing, and I think he really appreciated it.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Scott. We all love you, man. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you later. Have a great afternoon.